Give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's. The Romans had a tax system which is very similar to ours, and just like people today, the citizens of Rome were always griping about the amount of tax that they had to pay. Taxes were no more welcome then than they are now. People living in the Roman Empire had to pay ground tax, which was 10% of all crops grown, 20% tax on oil and wine, income tax on 1% of all earnings, and then there was a poll tax levied on males between 14 and 65 years old and females between 12 and 65 years old. The Romans obviously recognised that girls matured earlier than boys. This poll tax was known as tribute tax and was paid with a denarius, a coin which on the obverse side had an image of the emperor, which had an inscription above his head, signifying his divine rule. To carry the coin was to deny God and to break the commandment of not having graven images. The Pharisees and the Herodians were united in wanting to rid themselves of Jesus because they believed that he was undermining their authority with the people. And they thought that they'd found a way of discrediting him by trapping him into answering a question which he could not answer, without either damning himself in the eyes of the people who followed him by acknowledging the emperor as a supreme being, or by condemning himself to the authorities by denying the taxes due to the state, and in so doing preaching rebellion against the empire. So when the opportunity arises in front of as many people as possible, they spring their trap with their catch-22 question. Tell us, is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? Jesus looks at them, calls them hypocrites, and asks for the coin used to pay the tribute tax to be brought to him. I'll bet that he held the coin up in his fingers and studied it carefully, before turning to the scribes and asking, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They reply, "The emperor's." I wonder just how long Jesus paused before looking at them and saying, "Then give to the emperor those things which belong to him, and give to God those things which belong to God." The answer Jesus gives is one of great wisdom, because in fact he did not answer the question, and instead gave an answer that was complete, and left those asking the question nowhere else to go. In fact, what Jesus is telling them is that it is neither lawful nor unlawful to pay the emperor these taxes, and in so doing he's saying that you cannot separate the sacred and the secular, as they are interdependent one on the other, woven together almost like body and soul. Taxes were paid to Rome, and with the money, the empire was provided with administration and legal systems which were largely fair, roads and shipping routes which enabled communication across countries, an international system of coinage, well-designed cities with leisure facilities. And in our times, in our democracy, you can add to the tax bill a health service, a judicial system, education, subsidies to the arts and sports and other organisations, and many other things that are paid for wholly or in part by the taxes we pay. So it's quite clear that in order for the government to provide these things, we owe the money in taxes to pay for them. So what is it that we give to God? Or put another way, what do we owe God? What part of me belongs to God? The answer to that has got to be, well, everything really. My whole being, my life, my ability to think, to reason, my choices, my joy, my happiness, love, relationships, friendship and fellowship. Whatever I am makes whatever I am comes from God, and so I belong to God. All these things need to be rendered to God with thanks, and by doing these things, He expects me to love Him. Politics and God, as Jesus said all those years ago, can't really be separated. God made the world, God loves the world, and God is present in the world. However, we cannot hope for a new heaven and a new earth unless we work towards helping to bring it about. It's no good praying for peace if we don't help to end wars, or pray for equity among people if we do nothing to help it happen. We help to do this when we give of ourselves, when we render up to God the things that are God's. I cannot believe what our church has given to our harvest service for the toilet twinning. So important to make a difference, a real difference to the people of God's world, to God's people. God is giving to God what is due to God. Taxes are taken from us by the state, by law, and for our own benefit. We may question where and to what it is they're given and used for, but in reality, we have no choice in what is taken and what it is used for, except, I suppose, by using the ballot box. But we can ask questions, just what we give to God. Jesus told us how we give to God. He said we give to God by loving God, and by loving our neighbour as much as we love ourselves. I can well remember looking at a pay slip, many a pay slip in fact, and thinking unkind thoughts about a government which took so much of my hard-earned salary and resenting it. There have been times when I have found it very hard to love my neighbour and my God. I have to trust that the government will use my taxes, the money that I give them, wisely. I have to trust that my God knows what He is doing with a world, a universe, which is completely outside and beyond all comprehension. I have to trust my God. I have to learn to give to those who govern me my money, and to give to God those things that wealth and power cannot buy, the things that are well beyond price, one of which is trust. I have to learn to put my hand into the hand of God and to trust Him in all